If you're a diabetic and you're confused about which diet you should follow, then I promise you this video is going to help you understand what's going on in your world, in your diet, in your doctor's office, and on television and other mainstream media. You may have seen friends who personally reversed their type 2 diabetes by eating a specific diet. You may have seen hundreds of people on your social media say that they had reversed their type 2 diabetes or they had improved their type 1 diabetes tremendously by following a low-carb or a ketogenic or a carnivore diet. But then you watch television, read a magazine, go to your doctor or your dietitian, and you get exactly the opposite advice of what these people did. This video is going to help you understand the diabetes deception, the 5 horsemen that are deceiving diabetics like you. I'm Dr. Ken Berry, a family physician with 20 years of experience in the clinic, and I'm going to help you understand the 5 different ways that you are deceived as a diabetic and what you can do about that. Now, the first 3 horsemen of diabetic deception that I'm going to talk about, they make pretty good sense, and you'll quickly understand their motivation and why they say and do what they say and do. But the last 2 that I talk about, it's much more convoluted, perhaps even obtuse, and the logic just doesn't seem to make sense until you understand the big picture. And I'm going to try to break the facts about these last 2 horsemen down so you can understand why they're saying what they're saying. So the first horseman of diabetic deception is big food corporations, and this one makes pretty good sense. Big food corporations are in business to make a profit, right? They answer to their board of directors and their shareholders. It's actually illegal for them to do something that could harm the shareholders' profits. So they have to toe the party line if they're part of this corporation, right? And so they make a huge percentage markup profit on foods that are made of certain ingredients. And the 3 most profitable ingredients are sugar, grains, and vegetable oils. From these 3 ingredients, and maybe add a little salt and some flavorings, they can make virtually any product that you could find on a grocery shelf. These products are very shelf stable. They don't go bad. So if you buy it next week or next year, it's going to taste just as fresh as it did the day it was made. They are able to get these 3 ingredients very cheaply, and so the percentage profit that they make off these products is higher than they can make off anything else. You can never make the percentage markup profit off broccoli or blueberries or ribeye that they make off of frankenfoods that they manufacture out of sugar, grains, and vegetable oils. So they're in business to make a profit, and so they're going to advertise to you these things and talk about how healthy they are, how they help you lose weight, and now they're starting to realize that low carb and keto, those are real things out there. There are hundreds of thousands of people who know those phrases and know that they are important, and so they're starting to implement low carb and keto into their brand labels on the front. But all you got to do is flip it over to the back and you can quickly see that ain't keto. So big food corporations, they make billions of dollars a year. They spend millions in advertising. So they're going to try to convince you that you should eat their product. That makes sense, right? Horseman number 2 of diabetic deception is big pharma. These are the huge billion-dollar corporations that make the pills and the injections that you treat diabetes with, whether it's type 1 or type 2. And so these guys have no interest whatsoever in seeing you reverse your type 2 diabetes or in seeing you improve your type 1 diabetes so much that you don't need nearly as much insulin as you used to need. They are in business to make a profit. They're for profit. They have a board of directors. They have shareholders. It is their duty to turn a profit for the shareholders. It would be illegal for someone working for this corporation to literally come out and say, hey, you should eat a low-carb diet, a keto diet. That would actually be, that's a chargeable offense because they are hurting shareholder profits, right? So they're not going to do that. So those two, that makes perfect sense. You can understand what they're up to. Now, the third horseman of the diabetic deception is mainstream media. This goes for the networks on television, the magazines, even local stations. These guys are all for profit. They have to turn a profit or they'll go broke. They have a board of directors. They have potentially shareholders. And if they're not doing everything they can to maximize profits, they'll get in trouble, right? Now, the way these guys make profits is by selling advertising. Now, since there are no billion-dollar keto corporations or billion-dollar low-carb or carnivore corporations, they've got to sell ads to somebody. And so they're going to sell ads to Big Pharma and Big Food. That's going to be the majority of their advertising dollars. And so they're not very keen on talking about low-carb and keto and carnivore because just imagine your local news channel 5. They started running a story every day on the news. Oh my gosh, you can reverse type 2 diabetes with a low-carb keto carnivore diet. What would happen to their advertising dollars, the majority of which are coming from Big Food and Big Pharma, right? Neither of those guys want them to run that news story. Big Pharma and Big Food are both very happy for them to breathlessly talk about the new flavor of Dunkin' Donut. They don't mind if they talk about that because that doesn't hurt Big Food and it actually helps Big Pharma. And that's why a lot of times you see blatant advertisement ran as a news story because it doesn't step on the toes of any of the big advertisers that pay for their ad budget. So these first three horsemen of diabetic deception, they make sense. They're just trying to make a profit. I don't think there's a conspiracy. I don't think that they're out to destroy the world or even to destroy their health, your health. They just basically don't care. They're in business to make money, and that's what they're going to try to do. Now, the next horseman of diabetic deception is more complicated, so pay attention. Horseman number 4 of diabetic deception is the American Diabetes Association. Now, the A.D.A. is a non-profit corporation. Now, many people mistakenly believe that that means that they have to give away all of the money they get in donations every year and break even. That's not true. They have to do one of two things. They either have to give the money away or they have to spend the money on administrative costs. So that's the hook that helps them get by. So the American Diabetes Association has actually over 80 executives that make over $100,000 a year as a salary. So nonprofit doesn't mean that the people at the top don't earn a salary. It's just the volunteers at the bottom that work for free. The people at the top make very good money. Some of the upper executives actually make very close, if not a little over $500,000 a year at the American Diabetes Association. Now, they receive donations, right? And you may think of, when I say donation, of you having a fundraiser at your church for the A.D.A., or you wrote a check for $100 to the A.D.A. All of those donations make up probably 10%, if not less, of their total donations. Where they get the bulk of their donations from is from, number 1, big food corporations, and number 2, big pharma corporations. And so they have corporations who give them over $1 million a year. Corporations like Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, Sanofi. Now, those are big pharma corporations. You may not realize that they're the ones who make injectable insulin. So now are you starting to see? Then also they get hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars every year from Merck, from Abbott, from Pizza Hut, from Kraft, from Coca-Cola, Yoplait, Cadbury, big food. So the bulk of the American Diabetes Association's donations come from big pharma and big food. Does that worry you a little bit? Because it should. So let's say you're the CEO of the A.D.A., right? And you're making $500,000 a year, and you've got a cush benefits, cush retirement. You get your travel paid to travel all over the world and speak. But you realize, oh my gosh, a low-carb keto carnivore diet will reverse type 2 diabetes, and it will make type 1 diabetes so much better. Their A1C will be so healthy that they can use 80% less insulin a year. And you, as the CEO of the A.D.A., you started telling this in blog posts, you went on podcasts, you started doing this all over the place. What do you think that your donors in Big Pharma would have to say about that? Right. They would not like that at all. They would tell you to shut up. And they might not officially be able to tell you to shut up. But what they could say is, times are tight here at Novo Nordisk or Eli Lilly. We're not going to be able to donate $1 million to you this year. We're only going to be able to give you $5,000. Quickly, the A.D.A. board of directors would have an emergency meeting with you, the CEO, and they would tell you behind closed doors in a private meeting to shut up. You understand? So although I believe that everyone at the American Diabetes Association has your best interest at heart as a diabetic, they want you to live a long and healthy life, but they are bound by their donors. If they proclaim a low-carb, keto, carnivore diet to be as powerful as they truly are in real life, they would start to lose millions of dollars in donations from Big Pharma. If they in turn said, hey, you should eat a low-carb diet, you shouldn't eat things that are made of sugar and grains and industrial seed oils, Coca-Cola and Kraft and Cadbury and Heinz would start saying, I think we're going to find another charity this year because you're hurting our bottom line. And so although it's not probably written down in black and white anywhere, everyone at the American Diabetes Association, nonprofit organization, they understand that if they proclaim a low-carb, keto, carnivore diet too aggressively, they will cut into their donors. They will lose millions of dollars in donations, and therefore, they won't be nearly as big of an organization. And therefore, you, Mr. or Mrs. CEO, we're going to have to cut your salary from $500,000 dollars a year. We're going to have to cut that down to $50,000 a year, and you're going to have to pay for your own travel, and also you're going to have to get your own health insurance because we don't have as many donors anymore. So do you see how it's in everybody at the A.D.A.'s best interest to say, well, diabetes is a chronic progressive disease. You just need to take your pills and eat lots of whole grains and lots of fruit and maybe take some insulin injections. And if you're a type 1 diabetic, same advice. Don't worry about the pills. Just take more and more insulin. Eat as many carbs as you want and match that with your insulin. Do you see how it's in their best interest? Even though they're a nonprofit charitable organization, the upper echelon, the 80 executives who make more than $100,000 a year plus lots of benefits, their income is directly related to the degree that they talk about your diet. So they're not going to. Now that's number 4. Number 5 is your doctor and your dietitian. So what's going on with these guys? I mean, I love my doctor and my doctor loves me. Why in the world would so what happened? I started a low carb or a keto diet, right? I'm a type 2 diabetic and man, my blood sugars are better. I'm down 2 pant sizes. I feel better. And I go see my doctor or my dietitian and they say, stop that immediately. That's dangerous. Don't do that. Based on what, doctor, dietitian? What are you basing this on? And so they'll say the American Diabetes Association, because that's where they get their guidelines from, reference back up 1, 2, 3, and 4 above. These are their guidelines. And although a low carb option is in their guidelines, it's on page 492 of their 500-page manual. So obviously I can tell that that's not very important to them, but I want you to eat lots of whole grains and lots of fruit because that is a good diet for a diabetic. So, but what's good? So do doctors not think? Do dietitians, do they not do research? Are they not on Facebook? Do they not know what's going on? Do they not know that Virta Health has up to 3 years of research now showing that a low-carb diet is the diet for a diabetic? Do they not know that? Or do they not care? So doctors are very busy. Dietitians are very busy. They've got bills to pay. They've got their family to take care of. And they have their state regulatory board watching over their shoulder. And if they recommend a diet that is not considered standard of care or not considered community care, they could actually receive a letter from their state medical board or from their regulatory body saying, hey, you're operating outside of your standard of care and we're going to censure you or we're going to fine you or we're going to put you on probation. And nobody wants to get a letter like that from their state regulatory body. And so even though they may have seen multiple patients who reverse their type 2 diabetes or improve their type 1 diabetes with a low-carb keto carnivore diet, they're not going to recommend them because they're afraid they'll get in trouble. Another thing that is very hard for doctors and dietitians is that they were trained at institutions that receive huge donations from Horsemen number 1, number 2, and number 3 on this list. And so it has been almost indoctrinated into them that eating lots of whole grains and lots of fruit is the diet that a diabetic should eat. So they've got that going against them as well. Thirdly, there are many doctors out there. Usually they graduated from a very prestigious university. Usually they work at a very prestigious university. And Big Pharma pays these doctors hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to give lectures to other doctors. And so you can just imagine if Eli Lilly was paying a doctor $700,000 a year to speak to other doctors, and this happens, there's actually a website called ProPublica. I'm going to put a link down in the show notes below so you can actually look up your doctor and see if they're taking money from Big Pharma. But if that doctor was making $750,000 a year to give lectures talking about how Eli Lilly or Novo Nordisk or Sanofi's latest injectable is the best in the world, if that doctor started talking about a low-carb diet too much or a ketogenic diet too much, that doctor wouldn't get any more checks to be speaking. And so then that doctor is considered very preeminent, very honorable by every other doctor, so they're going to listen to that doctor. You see how the human nature of all this adds up to you, and you're the little guy at the bottom with diabetes. You're the one who's going to get screwed by all this, while everybody else makes thousands or millions or billions of dollars. That's just the way the world works. There is no billion-dollar low-carb keto carnivore corporation. There is no nonprofit low-carb keto carnivore nonprofit corporation that rakes in millions of dollars of donations a year. So we can't lobby Congress. We can't lobby the Senate. We can't lobby the USDA who puts out the MyPlate guidelines. That's not going to happen because low-carb keto carnivore is a word of mouth. First I fix myself, then I'm going to help you fix you kind of movement. And so, yeah, this movement is not going to be condoned by these 5 horsemen of diabetic deception. And in fact, at some point, I predict that we're going to start to be villainized and perhaps even attacked socially or perhaps even legally as we really start to cut into the profits of the first 3 horsemen of diabetic deception. If you are a type 1 diabetic, you need to buy a copy of Dr. Bernstein's book. I've got a link down below. You absolutely need a continuous glucose monitor. And if you're on Facebook, you need to join a Facebook group called Type 1 Grit. I've got a link down below. If you're a type 2 diabetic, then watch my Keto 101 playlist or my Carnivore 101 playlist. You can quickly reverse your type 2 diabetes while eating delicious food until you're full. You can stop taking all those expensive injections and expensive medications and stop going to the doctor every 10 minutes. There's not a conspiracy when it comes to the care and treatment of diabetics, but money talks. And the more money you have, the more talking you can get done. And that's what's happening at the top of this list of the 5 horsemen of diabetic deception. I'm Dr. Barry. I'll see you next time.